What's up, boys? Today, I want to talk about building skill as a shooter and how to train when you might not have a budget, or how to train for a low amount of money. So, I think for a certain portion or subsection of people, when someone asks, hey, do you want to go shooting? There is a certain portion of people that might imagine taking a couple of guns, going out maybe on a private property, maybe it's going to a range, indoor range, outdoor range, wherever. They go out, take their ammo, their firearm, they load up a couple of magazines, and then they mag dump into trash. And while, there's nothing wrong with mag dumping into trash. I've been there, I've done that. That being said, developing skill and building fundamentals, working on things iteratively, and building a repeatable, reliable draw, a good shot, first shot, and successive follow-up shots. All of these things take practice. A lot of people just want to go out, pull triggers, have fun. And I get that. But there's a couple different ways that you can spend near to zero money or very low money and still build good habits, still build solid foundation, and incrementally build up and increase your foundation as a shooter so that you not only become better, but you're more prepared as a firearms enthusiast, defender, law enforcement, military, insert whatever you carry or use your firearm for, or use, if you're just an enthusiast and you enjoy shooting, you're a whatever, 3-gun competition person, IDPA, IPSEC, whatever you do, this is what I've found to be helpful for me building a solid foundation on which I was capable of essentially training myself and becoming a competent shooter. I wouldn't say I'm the best. I wouldn't say I'm the worst. I would say I'm a solid middle of the pack, decent shooter. So I want to go over a couple tips, how to optimize, not only, kind of continuing on my range bag breakdown and how to optimize your range time, some techniques that you might be able to use or implement that might make you a better shooter. A couple little things that I've learned. When, let's say you're getting ready to leave for work, you go to wherever you store your pistol and you put it on your person. Every single opportunity that you handle a firearm can be an opportunity to do it the correct way. Some people don't even, inspect their firearm when they don or doff it, which is put it on or take it off. Using every opportunity that you handle your firearm, even when it's just sitting in its holster, to properly maintain a high tang grip with your finger up in a safe direction, good master grip. You don't have to put your other hand on it, but every time that you pick this firearm up, to ensure that you're not just limp wristing it, or if you're holding mags, you're holding them strange. Hold your magazines, index them properly like you would on a reload. And before or even after you put on your holster in your firearm, go ahead and do a quick inspection of the firearm. So I'm gonna put this one down and use pre-cleared for all you safety minded individuals out there. 100% clear, nothing in the magazine. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this firearm is clear. So when you pick it up, maintain a good high tang grip. I know I've said that. Inspect visually that the slide is all the way forward in the forwardmost condition. If you have a thumb safety, ensure that your thumb safety is on. You can check and see if check and ensure if your extractor is raised. That means you would have a round in the chamber. You could do a press check. I know some people are against press checks. I personally do it. I don't do it every single day, but every once in a while, just for a sanity check, or every time I'm handling a firearm that's not in a holster or a case, I like to double check, just quickly press back, ensure there's brass, tap, 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 or tap, 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 make sure it's in battery. You can do a light check, check your weapon light, ensure that the battery is not dead. You can punch out, ensure that your dot is at the correct brightness or that the dot is on correctly. Check your sights, make sure that they are properly in line and in place. I have had this Trijicon front sight walk on me a couple times, and I had to go in there and manually retighten it. So ensure, if you're only rocking iron sights and not a dot, ensure that your iron sights are properly in line. See, negligent light discharge there. And make sure that your magazine is properly seated. Drop it. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to use this ETS magazine so that it is properly seat, lock, tug, and then reholster. Sometimes people won't double check that, and they'll have a loose magazine, it'll fall out, or maybe they won't have a fully loaded magazine in their firearm when they go out. It's just another opportunity to ensure that your firearm is in a tip-top condition. So I know this isn't really skill building, but again, if you always treat it in a serious manner, then you're building solid grip. You're maintaining good sight alignment and pressure when you punch out to check your dot. You're properly engaging your light if you have a light. If you turn that on, you're getting a good sight picture in a safe direction. Remember, even if it's unloaded, never point a firearm in a direction that is unsafe. Usually up is good unless people live above you. Just point it in a safe direction whenever you're handling a firearm. There's nobody for 100 meters in this direction, and there's brick and a bunch of drywall. This is an empty firearm. That being said, locked open, and I'm going to set this down. Also, using it as an opportunity to ensure your holster is properly together. An eye for the small details. Are your screws walking out? If you do this and take it seriously, you'll do it every time. It won't take you 5 minutes to do a quick inspection of your firearm. It literally takes 20 seconds. You can punch out, do all the things you need to do, reholster, ensure that everything's good to go, and then be on with your day. While you're getting dressed, you can get good, solid reps. Ensure that your clothing works with your system. Some people have never even attempted to do a one-handed draw. Just check and see if you can do a one-handed draw with your firearm 2 or 3 times before you leave the house, and then holster up and take off. So that's one way that I don't do. Again, I don't do this constantly, but it's a good way to familiarize yourself with the firearm and build a fundamental objective and accomplish that objective. And it costs you nothing unless you don't have a firearm and you need to go buy a firearm. That being said, a secondary way that I like to practice at home is you can use painter's tape and make 1 to 2 inch squares, place them around the house. You could use an airsoft gun, you could use a laser pointer, you could use your firearm as long as it's safe and clear. Whatever you need to do, if you want to use a rifle, you can use a rifle. You put painter's tape, or you can use a light switch. Again, however you go about it, I like the painter's tape because it's nice contrast. And you punch out and take your shot. Again, do this in a safe direction. Firearm's completely clear. That is partially why I showed the ETS magazine. I like using these for dry fire because if I'm doing anything, it's a quick way that I can see there is no ammo. And again, for posterity's and safety's sake, I have removed all ammunition from my immediate area. The only live ammunition is literally outside of my reach. I would have to stand up to get it. So if I'm practicing, let's say dry fire for 10 minutes, and I'm going to use a light switch or a piece of painter's tape as my target, I will stand there, sit there, however you want to do it. So I would be seated and I would lift, draw, and punch out. That's how I would, practice a draw from a seated position in a vehicle, wherever. There are little things like that, or you could use a paint pen and mark a magazine. That is your dry fire only magazine. I know that Glock makes orange base plates for some of their firearms. I believe they're Gen 4 base plates, but they'll still work in Gen 5 firearms. Have a system when you're dry firing that ensures that you are not putting loaded magazines or ammunition into a firearm. I like the idea of using an airsoft pistol. Some people don't. I don't own one, but I do like the idea of that because you're not pointing a firearm. If you live near anybody or have neighbors, you're not pointing a firearm anywhere where there could potentially be an issue. Just whatever you're doing with dry fire, be safe, always triple check, and remove all the ammunition from where you're training. Okay, dry fire, I can kind of expound on that. Really, dry fire is the practice of the mechanics of reloads, weapon manipulations, turning the light on, sight presentation, trigger press. You do not need recoil to practice getting a trigger pull. I know it might sound crazy. You don't need to rack the slide and do 1 and then rack the slide and then do 2. A lot of very high level competent shooters practice dry firing with a dead trigger. So I'm going to explain this. Again, this firearm is clear. 1, 2, 3, lock it open, visually inspect, pinky in there if you want to. So I'm going to drop this trigger. Let's set the parameters first. Let's say I'm going to dry fire this pistol. We'll do a simulated build drill, which is draw, punch out, 6 rounds. I would punch out, and rather than go 1, 2, 3. Do you see that? You see what I'm getting at? I would punch out, get my sight alignment, sight picture, and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and act as though my finger is resetting on the trigger, even though the trigger is not resetting every trigger pull. There's no reason why you cannot just mime a trigger pull, and that's how I developed primarily my reset during the cycling, rather than click, walk it out, and doing that over and over and over again. It reinforced my ability to bring my trigger rather than pin and slowly walk it out. It works for some people, it doesn't work for everybody. And again, if you're going to do something like that, have a schedule, set time aside. Don't just haphazardly go, I'm gonna dry fire today, and then run around and do it. Set a little bit of time aside, maybe once a week, or whenever you have free time. Maybe it's when you're cleaning your firearms, or after the kids are at school, or whatever works for you. Set time aside, work on dry fire. You can use a couple of these tips and save a bunch of time and a bunch of money, and you're still building good reps. You could do it from the holster, you could do it from the table, however you see fit. You could use a rifle if you want to. Again, I use these 20 round sure feeds. You can practice all your weapon manipulation and every single thing without ever sending a round downrange. That being said, there's also ways to save money on the range outside of buying cheap ammo. I don't personally recommend purchasing steel-cased ammo or aluminum-cased ammo, strictly because I've had negative experiences with it. The Blazer aluminum ammunition, I haven't really had that many issues with it, but most of the steel-cased ammunition that isn't really like an AK round, I've had a lot of issues with 9, and to a lesser extent some of the 5.56 223. But I've had negative experiences with 40, 45, 9mm, pretty much most handgun rounds in a steel case. So try and avoid purchasing steel cased ammunition and save a little bit extra money, wait for a sale, purchase or split a larger bulk order with friends if you have friends or family or somebody else who's also into firearms. Use online resources like AmmoSeek or Lucky Gunner to find good deals on ammo, and don't skimp if you can't afford these, these nice, the B5s, the B7s, like an actual target. You don't need this just to be training. You can use printer paper, and I'm going to put all of these, a link to most of these in the description. You can use just a piece of printer paper and go to some of these websites and print out different targets. And I have an obnoxious amount of these, and I've used hundreds of them. Lucky Gunner's got them. Carry Trainer, Mick is a great guy. GBRS, I really like the Eleanor drill from Aaron Cowan from Sage Dynamics. He's also got a couple other zeroing targets, and the cranial vault map. I think he has an upper thoracic one as well, which I might have used all of mine. Yes, I did. This quite literally just costs a little bit of paper. You get a ream of paper for $10, or you go most places. A lot of people will let you print stuff for really cheap, or 10 cents a page. There's no reason to spend a bunch of money on targets and stuff and these little little pasters and stuff when you can just print bulk targets for very cheap. On top of printing your own targets, reusing targets, pasting stuff up, I'll try and intercut some footage of our homemade target stands that we made. They use 1-bys and a couple, we staple stuff up to them. You can also use a spray adhesive, which I've talked about in the past. Loctite makes a blue can of spray adhesive. You can just spray, you get a couple of these guys from Amazon if you have it in your budget. Spray the adhesive and stick it right to it if you want to. Or, on the white side, you can just take a blank piece of paper and paste. There are ways that you can be creative and save money and reuse things without spending an arm and a leg. Yes, I'm aware those IPSC targets are quite expensive, but it's cheaper than a bunch of steel gongs or reduced C steel target. So wisely invest in your shooting and what you're purchasing. Save up for bigger ticket items and purchase things that are reusable if at all possible. That being said, one of the greatest things that I've purchased that has helped me in my shooting journey was a shot timer. This is the Club Pact II shot timer. I talked about this in the previous optimizing your range time video. I pretty much don't go to the range without this, even if it's just basic stuff. Having metrics by which you can compare yourself to previous iterations is really the only way of understanding whether or not you're getting better. You don't have to purchase a shot timer. There are apps on your phone. You can use just your camera, your phone camera, and record yourself. If you want to do it that way, you could put it into an editing software and figure out your split times. There are ways to do it without spending a bunch of money, is what I'm getting at. And yes, this was $150. I've had it for almost 4 or 5 years. It only cost me a couple bucks for replacements and batteries. Outside of that, it has worked every single time. If you have a suppressor, you probably don't need to worry about saving money because you got a can and you probably have the money to train properly, but it does sometimes have issues picking up suppress shots. You do have to get them a little bit closer. Other than that, it is a great training tool to work up to. You could take any of the other suggestions that I've used and build up to it if you want. So another thing that is extremely important, not only to work on, but having a good routine while you're at the range is also going to keep you from going out there and just ripping through, 50, 100 rounds, a couple mags, whatever your allotment of ammunition is for the trip. Having something to a goal or a standard to work on or work towards is a great way. There's a bunch of different resources. You could figure out what other people are shooting at. You could figure out IDPA or IPSEC times for different classes and compare yourself to those things. You could just have a basic firing schedule. I'm going to work today on controlled pairs. I'm going to work on presentation from appendix or inside the waistband carry, or from a belt if you're a law enforcement, military, or a 3-gun shooter. Transition work. There's reloads. There's prone behind barricades, at night using lights, under nods, all the different types of malfunction clearances. You can use these, I'm not exactly sure the price, but these are dummy rounds. These are some of my favorites. These are the Glock ones. I think they're 50 of them for, I can't remember the exact price. I want to say around $20. If you say, I'm squared away in every single thing, I don't need to work on anything, I'm just going to go out and shoot stuff, awesome, do you. But every time you pull the trigger, it should be an opportunity to learn something. Don't just say, oh, this gun's shooting low and left, it's the gun. Why is it shooting low and left? Take video of you shooting, diagnose it, check into things. Zero your guns and then confirm your zeros. Don't just assume that they're going to be good. Use all of these tips to go and build a solid foundation. I know I've said it like 15 times by this point, but every round that leaves the barrel of a firearm that is connected to your booger hook right here, you are accountable for all of them. And if you're taking yourself seriously, you should be working on these things and you should be trying to develop core skills that are better than you were the day before or the day previously or the trip previously. You don't always have to be on. You're not always going to have, 0.1 splits. I'm not saying I'm the greatest shooter, but I've gone from the guy who just goes out and shoots paint cans or trash that's, in the backyard to a competent, safe firearm owner and person who carries. I've taught, I don't know how many of my friends, family, random people, my friends, that I've made on YouTube and random strangers through social media. I've taught people everything that I've learned in the course of almost 10 years, but realistically the last 8 years. And I just want people to maximize their potential, do it safely, and have a blast. I know this seems like a long, drawn-out conversation, but I think it's important to properly evaluate things, especially when it's connected to firearms. How do you talk to your children about it? Well, maybe instilling some of these core fundamental things and the 4 rules of firearm safety, properly maintaining good grip pressure, good sight picture, squeezing the trigger, not pulling it or jerking it. All of these things are important to know. And if you can distill most of this information and pass it on, then you've probably got it pretty squared away. So let me know if there's something that I missed. You guys can follow me on Instagram if you're interested in it. That link is down there and probably on screen right now. Please, if you enjoyed the video or any of my other content, go ahead and like the video. If you didn't like it, go ahead and hit dislike. Subscribe, comment. Tell me what I'm forgetting if there's something that you include in this stuff. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. You're a grown-ass man. Do what you wish. I appreciate everybody for sticking around, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.